Hello and welcome to another edition of High School Roundup. It's the first episode of the 2016 high school football season here on CUTV. I'm Anthony D'Agostino, your host, and alongside me is my esteemed panel of analysts, Stephen Ruffing and Danny Beck. And guys, it's great to have you on the set for the first time here on High School Roundup. Last time we had Matt Hagee and Zach Prosba. Now we got two sophomores on the bunch here. Great to have you guys here.
It feels crazy stepping up into this prestigious role of filling in their shoes.
Right, you have a long history of High School Roundup, and it's great to be a part of it.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a great first week of football, non-conference games, something that hasn't happened before in the WPIAL teams playing way out of their conference. And it was just a great atmosphere, especially California playing Brownsville. The CUTV went to that game, and that was the first time these two teams played each other, ever.
Right.
And it was dubbed the River Rivalry. And Steve, you had the highlights for that one.
I do, in fact, have the highlights for that one. And this California team, complete 360 from last year. I mean, they were passing the ball. They were just on fire. Brownsville could not stop them whatsoever. And our first highlight here, we have Austin Grillo, an 81-yard touchdown pass to Cass Taylor. And look at him, home free, all the field in the world to get to that end zone. And after that, you see him celebrate, happy Trojans on the field right there. They celebrate. And that's the only touchdown that was scored in the first quarter. And right here, you have Jonathan Wood with a 14-yard run. We're going to see him a lot in these highlights. There you go. Jonathan Wood, again, like I said, look at him breaking these tackles, just running all over Brownsville's defense. A 29-yard touchdown, and that will be it for the first half with Cal up 20-0. And here you see Cal again, Austin Grillo, a 70-yard pass to Braden Petrucci. Look at him. Nice blocks there. Again, home free. He could just tiptoe in that end zone. And like I said, that Jonathan Wood appearing all the time in these highlights with a wildcat play, a 2-yard run. He just sneaks his way into that end zone on that Brownsville defense. And the kick was actually blocked on this play. So the score is 32-0 at the end of the third. And there you have Cal touchdown, Jelani Stafford with a 1-yard run with a 2-point conversion right after. And here we go, a huge play by Tyler Herman. Look at him. 55-yard run, breaking through the whole Trojan army to get down the field. Finally, Cal catches up to him and brings him down. Here you see Tyler Herman again completing his 55-yard run with an 8-yard touchdown, bringing down just too late into the end zone. The kick was good, but that was not enough for this Brownsville team as they fell to California 40-0.
40-7, but
40-7. I'm sorry.
Almost 40-0. And with that Tyler Herman big run and touchdown, that broke the shutout for Brownsville. And in a game that Brownsville they couldn't find the answers until too late. They only had about 3 first downs in that entire game. It was crazy to see how well California played.
Right. And this California team, is it a fluke or are they legit this year? Because we saw them last year. They weren't nearly as what they were on those highlights. They were passing the ball. They were running the ball. Just an all-around solid team this year, I think.
It'll be interesting to see when we play California again against Avella at California in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and Jonathan Wood, I mean, he blew up everything out of proportion. I mean, Brownsville had a really hard time tackling him, and it was good to see that they still had enough fighting spirit to kind of score at the late ends of the end zone. So it's cool. It's cool to see.
We're going to take now a look at the non-conference scoreboards for the Tri-County South teams. And we're starting here. Chartiers Houston playing Jeff Morgan. And Chartiers Houston, big win, 34-8. We're actually going to see Jeff Morgan next week, as we talk about that a little later in the show. And then Charleroi at Monessen. Huge rivalry. Charleroi beats Monessen 23-21. And Danny, talk about this game.
Yeah, that was the first win for Charleroi since 2014, and the first meeting with Monessen since 2007. And like you were saying, a huge rivalry dates back to 1905, actually. So it's deep-rooted, and Charleroi scored 16 unanswered points after falling behind 13-7.
just a crazy game, and this rivalry, as you said, goes on forever. As we take a look now, Bentworth playing West Green. Bentworth handing West Green a loss here, 40-12, and Western Beaver beating Avella 14-6. And Steve, that Western Beaver team beat Avella pretty good.
Yeah, and that Western Beaver team, they start off the half with 2 first-half touchdown strikes, from Jetty Young and Turner Anthony. They propelled the Golden Beavers out of Avella and snapped their 10-game losing streak dating to 2014. And what a cool thing to do, break a losing streak. So that was awesome for Western Beaver with a nice win against Avella.
And one more non-conference game, Mapletown falling to Sierra Catholic 41-12. As we take a look at the standings now in the Tri-County South after this non-conference week, as California is the only one on top with the record of 1-0, and everyone else, Avella, Jeff Morgan, Mapletown, Monessen, and West Green, all fell 0-1 now. Carmichael's and Fort Cherry both did not play. They decided to scrimmage, which was an option for these teams, as these are single A teams here. As we move on now to the non-conference Century Conference here, Bentworth, again, West Green, we talked about that, 40-12, the final score there, but McGuffey playing Fraser at North Allegheny for this at North Allegheny matchup. McGuffey winning 38-28. Danny, talk about this one.
Yeah, and Marcus Zulisk, I believe his name, he had 358 yards of offense. Like, that is unheard of in any rank of football. So congratulations to him coming out on top. And like you were saying, a North Allegheny game, that was pretty cool to probably play at a different stadium, kind of get a different feel of everything. So yeah, great job McGuffey handling Fraser pretty easily.
A neutral stadium there. As we take a look now, as we talked about Charleroi at Monessen, 23-21. Chartiers Houston beating Jeff Morgan 34-8. As we look at the Century standings now in the non-conference matchup, AA, Bentworth, Charleroi, and Chartiers Houston all winning, and they have a record of 1-0. Burgettstown, Washington, and Beth Center decided to scrimmage as well. Brownsville fell to California, as we saw. Them and Fraser are 0-1 now. As we go to a commercial break, we will come back with South Union Township highlights, non-conference scores for the AAA, Quad A, and 5A standings. We'll talk about the new alignment system as we move forward in this show. Stick around here on CUTV.
High school football game of the week. Springdale at Jeff Morgan. Avella at California. Bell Vernon at Ringgold. Greensburg Central Catholic at Charleroi. Waynesburg at Southmoreland. Baldwin at Connellsville. Beth Center at Brownsville. Fraser at Bentworth. Bishop Canavan at Carmichael's. The longest running high school coverage in southwestern PA is on CUTV.
CUTV News Center is California University of Pennsylvania's award-winning student television newscast. Your source for live, local, late-breaking news. Forecasts from the CalU Weather Center. The region's latest entertainment news. Vulcan sports highlights and regional scoreboards with television news coverage you can't get anywhere else. Watch it live Thursdays on CUTV and on demand. CUTV News Center, online all the time.
Hello and welcome back to High School Roundup here on CUTV. We're going to jump right into the highlights for this AAA non-conference matchup where Laurel Highlands took on Mount Pleasant at Mount Pleasant in a year where Laurel Highlands lost Jimmy Pierce and Chad Livingston to graduation. Jimmy Pierce and Chad Livingston now being on the California Vulcans college football team. And Danny, you had the highlights for this matchup.
I do have the highlights, and Laurel Highlands coming out on this one pretty easily over Mount Pleasant, so maybe we can jump right into these highlights and see how it all went down. And Laurel Highlands won the toss, deferred to receive the kickoff in the second half, giving Mount Pleasant a few early penalties and giving them the lead 3-0. We'll start here after a few empty possessions from both sides. The second quarter opened with a 1-yard run from Chris Wagner to extend the leads to 7. And now the Mustangs came out ready to score, and Chad Petrus came up big, hauling in an 18-yard pass to put Laurel Highlands on the board, 10-6. The very next play, however, Keith Kelp decided to take scoring into his own hands, returning the kickoff here, as you can see, 74 yards to push their lead to 11, making it 17-6. See here, one man of beat and just walks right in, similar to how Steve's highlights were, just tiptoes right into the end zone. And Mount Pleasant turned on the heat yet again and scored 2 more times, one being a 55-yard run from Cody Reese, making the score 31-6. See here, happy as ever running into the end zone there, extending their lead. Laurel Highlands made one last attempt at getting back into this contest with a 77-yard touchdown from a quarterback option play too, making it 31-14 after the 2-point conversion was completed. And it was the Mount Pleasant Vikings in this one getting the W in week 0 of the 2016 season, beating Laurel Highlands 45-21. For everyone here at CUTV, we would like to thank South Union Township and, most importantly, Jerry Dupuis for providing the film for this game.
Yeah, and we always love having highlights. We didn't even think there would be highlights for that game. We didn't know that they were coming, and then Jerry comes down to the station, gives us the tape, and you can just see the smile on my face. I'm like, we definitely have highlights for this game, and it was really cool because that last touchdown for Laurel Highlands was huge. Breaking tackles all by himself, getting the touchdown, and it was crazy because it wasn't Jimmy Pierce doing that. It was somebody different, which is great to see for this Laurel Highlands team. As we now take a look at the interstate non-conference scoreboards here, Derry went to Latrobe and ended up winning 28-20. Steve, talk about that game for Derry.
I mean, Derry-Latrobe, huge rivalry. I mean, they're right next to each other, so it was an action-packed game. Great game from both teams, but Derry comes out on top. Tyler Balega, we're going to hear his name a lot. He rushed for 208 yards that game with 2 touchdowns on the road to lead the Trojans to victory.
Yeah, Tyler Balega is a star. We talked about him a lot last year as well, as you see Frazier and McGuffey 38-28. As we now look at the interstate standings, interstate used to be AA, and it's a new alignment with 6A teams now. They moved up to AAA, as you see Derry, McGuffey, and Mount Pleasant all getting the W 1-0. Everyone else, they didn't play. They decided to scrimmage, so we'll start seeing more of those scores coming in week 1 this week, as you see Elizabeth Forward. South Park now is in this conference. Southmoreland, Waynesburg, and Yock. We'll all see those scores next week.
And Mount Pleasant will actually take on Waynesburg at home next week for their first interconference. So we can see a little bit of a change even happening next week as well.
As we go now to the Big 9 scoreboards, West Mifflin giving South Allegheny the goose egg here, 46-0 with the shutout. Hempfield beating Greensburg-Salem 28-21. And Danny, talk about this Hempfield-Greensburg-Salem game.
Yeah, that is huge. There's a Hempfield out by us, if you remember. So let's come back out here. But yeah, Hempfield coming out 28-21. That was huge to start off their season, kind of week 0, kind of feeling everything out. So great job from Hempfield there. Junior quarterback Justin Solwaski ran for 2 touchdowns and threw for a 3rd in the Spartans' win against the Golden Lions of Green-Salem. So it was cool.
As we take a look now at the other scoreboards here, Connellsville playing Uniontown. Connellsville going with the victory here, 21-7. And moving on to one more scoreboard. Actually, we go right into the standings, excuse me. West Mifflin getting the W. They're the only team to get the win, just like the Tri-County South. 1-0 now. As you see, Bell Vernon, Ringgold, Thomas Jefferson, Trinity, and Albert Gallatin all scrimmaged and decided not to play in week 0. Greensburg-Salem, Laurel Highlands, and Uniontown all get the loss and go to 0-1. It'll be interesting to see how this conference shapes up now that it's in the Quad A, with Thomas Jefferson being a perennial power in this conference.
Yeah, I mean, you have Thomas Jefferson and West Mifflin, but Thomas Jefferson has always been the thorn in West Mifflin's side. West Mifflin cannot beat TJ for the life of them, and that's going to be a problem. I mean, West Mifflin will make the playoffs. They're a powerhouse, but they always want that #1 spot, but TJ is always there to take it away from them.
And it'll be interesting to see how Bell Vernon and Ringgold do in this conference, as well as they were a powerhouse and big rivalry teams as well. As we now go to the Big East non-conference game, Penn Trafford playing Norwin. And we remember Penn Trafford when they played Connellsville. Tim Vecchio with the play of the year almost, with that huge interception return for a touchdown. Penn Trafford wins 17-14. Woodland Hills playing Gateway. Woodland Hills coming away with the victory 37-21. And Danny, this Penn Trafford-Norland game was back and forth.
Yeah, it was, and John Gay scored the second of his 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and Cam Laffoon hit Cody Wycock for the 2-point conversion as the Warriors came from 14 points down in the first half to take the victory. And like you were saying, the Penn Trafford, that was the first game I saw against Connellsville, so seeing this Penn Trafford team build and get back and beating Norman, that's a good way to start off their season.
And Cam Laffoon is actually the brother of Brett Laffoon, who we saw last year, the senior quarterback for Penn Trafford. So family history at that school as they are quarterback there. As we take a look at some more scoreboards, we saw Derry play Latrobe. Derry won 20-20. Kiski taking on Cannon Mac, and Cannon Mac stomping on Kiski 42-22 with a 20-point lead score there, Steve.
My gosh, Jordan Castelli throwing for 269 yards with 3 touchdowns to help the Big Macs roll over the Cavaliers. That is a high caliber quarterback right there, throwing for 250 plus yards there.
And we'll see if this Cannon Mac team is, we don't see them a lot because they are in a different conference that is out of our coverage area, but we may take a look at their scores later on in the season. Armstrong taking on Carnes City, and Armstrong coming away with a victory 35-22, Danny.
Yeah, and the Riverhawks improved to 2-0 at all time in season openers as Zane Dudek rushed for 278 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Gremlins. And just as crazy as that stat was, for 278 yards in high school, that he's going somewhere.
And 4 touchdowns there. I mean, that many yards and that many touchdowns, unbelievable.
Impressive.
As we take a look at the standings in the Big East, 3 teams played: Armstrong, Connellsville, and Penn Trafford. They all came away with the victory. They are 1-0. Franklin Regional and McKeesport and Plum did not play this week. We'll see them next week as Kiski, Latrobe, and Gateway all go to 0-1. And Penn Trafford, always a perennial power and looking to make the playoffs this season.
You know, Danny doesn't know if you want to go or not.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's cool to see. Like we were talking about Cam Laffoon, the family history and how they're bringing themselves up in football, and it'll be interesting to see how the team grows. Obviously, this week 1 or week 0, as we're calling it, is kind of just a feeling out time. I feel like teams are just kind of see who works good together. So a loss in this situation, does it really hurt the team or does it help the team? I feel like this first week or week 0, what we're saying, is, if anything, it's going to help the teams. So that's good to have a week kind of feeling out.
Yeah, instead of playing scrimmage, they played a game, and it gives them a chance to revisit some old rivalries that they may not have gotten a chance to do earlier because of these new classifications. As we're going to take it to commercial break. When we come back, there will be the upcoming schedules. We have our pick'em again, and don't forget the High School Roundup top 3 plays. All that next here on High School Roundup on CUTV.
Since 1937, the Student Association Incorporated, known as SAI, has served the Cal U student body by providing activities, programs, and services. Every enrolled student has the ability to take part in over 125 different clubs and organizations. Managing participation in every SAI activity is easy with OrgSync, a powerful tool for staying connected. Located 1 mile from campus, the SAI Farm has 94 acres of meeting and recreational space. SAI, it's your student association. For almost 30 years, CUTV has been the campus and community home for local news, sports, and entertainment. Broadcast in 100,000 homes in southwestern Pennsylvania, CUTV provides complete coverage of Vulcan sports as well as high school football coverage. Broadcast weekly live, CUTV News Center provides coverage of local and campus events, weekend weather, sports highlights, and feature stories. For more information on CUTV, check us out on the web, friend us on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter.
And welcome back to High School Roundup here on CUTV, our first episode of the 2016 high school football season. Again, Anthony D'Agostino alongside Stephen Ruffing and Danny Beck. And guys, we're going to get right into the schedule now for week 1 of the 2016 football season. As week 0 is done, the games and scrimmages are done, and we get right into the schedule here for the Tri-County South. September 2nd, West Green at Avella, Carmichael's at Monessen, California at Fort Cherry, and those are all 4 conference games there. Non-conference, Mapletown at Cornell, and Springdale at Jeff Morgan. And that Springdale-Jeff Morgan game, CUTV is going to be doing that game.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I think two very evenly matched teams we'll have here. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be very exciting. So we're looking forward to doing that game.
And Springdale's got a big running back there. So look for him next week to see how he does against this Jeff Morgan defense. As we move on to the Century's schedule here, Bentworth playing at Brownsville, Fraser going to Burgettstown, and Washington going to Charleroi. And then for the non-conference, Jeanette is playing Chartiers Houston, and the Best Center Bulldogs take on Yock. And Danny, do you see any games here that stick out to you?
Yeah, and I wasn't actually here last year when we did the Wash High game, so see maybe how Washington does against Charleroi. But just learning all these teams and stuff like that, since I'm out in PIAA territory, learning all these teams, learning how they play and all that stuff, it'll be interesting to see.
Danny, we can say it. We're from District 3, out east, and
there's no such thing as districts.
Whitfield here is very, very near and dear to all the Western PA guys, and we're honored to be here and learning about the Whitfield and its history and the teams about this. So we're learning as well as reporting here. As we move in to the interstate schedule for September 2nd, EF, which is very interesting. We're not actually going to EF this year. We've been going to EF for a very long time. They're playing Derry. Didn't get a chance to get to one of their games this year. Waynesburg playing at Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant was our PCN game last year when they took on Wash High. Southmoreland goes to South Park. And for the non-conference matchups here, Quaker Valley at McGuffey, and again, Best Center at Yock in that non-conference matchup. Elizabeth Ford at Derry, Steve. That's a big matchup.
That's a huge matchup because, we have Boyega on Derry, and Elizabeth Ford is an upcoming program, and they're both very skilled teams. So it's going to be exciting to see how Elizabeth Forward can stop Derry's offense and vice versa. So it's just going to be a downright gritty game, and obviously the best team will come on top.
Now moving to the Big 9, September 2nd. A lot of conference matchups here. West Mifflin playing at Trinity. Ringgold going to Greensburg, Salem. Thomas Jefferson going to Uniontown, and Bell Vernon playing at Albert Gallatin. And then for a non-conference game that South Union Township will be having, Indiana is coming to Laurel Highlands, and we'll get that for you next week for the highlights. Going now into the Big East. September 2nd, Gateway is going to Latrobe. Connellsville at Penn Trafford. We saw that matchup last year. Connellsville wants revenge. Franklin Regional at McKeesport. Plum at Kiski, and a non-conference game, Armstrong at Moon. And Danny, talking about this Connellsville-Penn Trafford matchup, huge rivalry again. We saw them last year.
Yeah, and Connellsville coming off of handling Uniontown pretty easily, and getting their confidence levels up obviously is going to be the bigger part in the beginning of the season. Working out their problems and getting who works well together is better than figuring out that later in the season. So Connellsville, hopefully they can continue this and get their first conference win of the season next week.
As we now move into one of our favorite parts of the show, Pick 'em, where we pick certain games and we kind of take bets on who's going to win. No money involved, just bragging rights. As we take a look at who's playing this year in the Pick 'em, it's me, Danny, Steve, our Matt Hagee, who was a senior last year, graduated, is now the grad assistant for Matt Kuiper, the sports information director. Clinton Logan and Scott Majeski, all CUTV alumni, coming in and playing, as well as our director, Gary Smith, and Zach Prosba, last year on High School Roundup, graduated and is alumni as well this year. As we take a look at our first Pick'em game, Carmichael's at Monessen, and I'm the only one picking Carmichael's. I'm going for the upset here. Everyone else picking Monessen. I think this Carmichael's team has a good team. They had a good team last year. Monessen, we saw them lose to Charleroi, and Monessen may be down this year.
Well, Monessen, yeah, can they do it twice in a row, though? Yes, they fell to Charleroi, but Charleroi, they're up and coming. They're going to have a good program, but this Carmichael's team, I don't think they can pull it off against Monessen. Monessen will refuse to lose 2 in a row.
Well, we'll see what happens next week as we move on to our game, Springdale at Jeff Morgan. Danny, you're the only one other than Zach going with Jeff Morgan. What do you got?
To be honest with you, this is one of those games that I just wanted to take a shot at. Everybody's going with Springdale. The last game that we picked, it was one of those that you were just history shows. So I just wanted to go with Jeff Morgan. I guess it was just one of those games.
Well, we'll see how Springdale does at Jeff Morgan, and we'll be covering that game, so it'll be very interesting there. As we go on to Elizabeth Forward at Derry, me, Clint, and Zach are all going with Derry. Steve, why did you pick Elizabeth Forward?
Because I think EF has the power to stop this Derry team. They will prove to them that EF, they deserve to be where they are. They are a good team, and I'm not taking anything away from Derry, but I think EF is just going to come out on top. They're going to stop Boyega, and they're going to come out with that win.
And moving on now, Jeanette taking on Chartiers Houston, and we all picked Jeanette as we think that one will be a win for Jeanette. Moving on now, West Mifflin at Trinity. Again, West Mifflin, a very powerhouse team, as we all pick West Mifflin. One final game, Franklin Regional at McKeesport. And I am the only one, other than Zach, picking Franklin Regional. Again, I want to be different, and I think Franklin Regional could really beat McKeesport, but McKeesport is a powerhouse team, as we've seen before. As we move in to one of our other favorite segments on this show, our top 3 plays, and then the blue ribbon play at the end. And Steve, we're going to start it with number 3 here for the top 3 plays. Who do you got?
Well, we're going back to Cal versus Brownsville. Yes, Cal, they proved themselves what they had. But here we have Tyler Herman, that 55-yard run where you have the whole entire Trojan army chasing after him. 55 yards, they finally bring him down.
And Danny, you get the number 2 here.
Yeah, number 2, we have Mount Pleasant. In the game that I actually covered with the highlights, Keith Kelp with an 80-yard touchdown return, just breaking tackles all over the place, has defenders in front of him, just has the kicker to beat, and scores that 80-yard touchdown that just improved their confidence levels, definitely.
As we go to our number 1 play for week 0, it goes Laurel Highlands, Will Karwatsky, the 77-yard touchdown run, and he just ran right through the middle of the line there. He almost got tackled, but that gives Laurel Highlands a little bit of life, and that's our blue ribbon play, week 0, first week. Again, Will Karwatsky, as he gets the 77-yard touchdown run. As we'll see, maybe next week, there may be a chance for somebody to upset this blue ribbon play.
And what's even more crazy about that play, too, it was on a quarterback option. So it was the vision that quarterback had to see that he wasn't going to hand the ball off. He knew he could take it right up the middle, and their defenders just took him right to the promised land.
And what I love about WPIA football, it is so unpredictable. You could have a new blue ribbon every single week.
Yeah.
But we don't know. That's what I love about Whitfield football. It's going to be so fun, action-packed, and you don't know what is going to happen.
As we saw last year, Penn Trafford's Tim Vecchio was the blue ribbon play for a very long time until Frazier did that wide receiver pass, and it was crazy. We saw something like that before, and that stayed the blue ribbon play for the rest of the season. Could we see something like that again this year? Who knows?
Right.
As we're wrapping it up here, we have one more thing to look at, CUTV's coverage. We are going to Jeff Morgan as they play Springdale, and that will be a full truck shoot, as this Cal-Brownsville game was the first test of a new setup, Wirecast setup, where it's basically a mobile shoot without the truck, so we can get 2 cameras, graphics, and announcers with that. But this is a full truck shoot, first full truck shoot of the 2016 CUTV season here. And great to be back doing things for CUTV, guys.
Yeah, it feels so good to be back. Technically, me and you, Anthony, we never left. We had a summer work study here, so we were really almost always down here. You were down here more than me, but it's still great to be back doing these shoots with all of you guys down here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I just got back, so it's like getting immersed back into CUTV and of course being on this show. It's just the legacy continuing the history. It's awesome. CUTV is second to none.
Well, we're looking forward to going to week 1 matchup next week for High School Roundup. For Danny Beck, for Stephen Ruffing, for our director and producer, Gary Smith, please tweet us if you have any things you want to input into our show at CUTV_PA, hashtag HSR 2016. If you tweet at us some picks, your pick 'em, we may mention it on the show as well. So do that at CUTV_PA, hashtag HSR 2016. Again, for Danny Beck, Stephen Ruffing, Gary Smith, our director, I'm Anthony D'Agostino. Until next week, thanks for watching High School Roundup on CUTV.
Another one, Konnak Sai, Soshke Ulu Sai.